next thing that we have to do is make a program to get the robot to turn 180 degrees. I'm going to use a sensor for this one. You don't have to use a sensor. You can tell the motors, like as you can see here, you can tell the motors to move at different rotations. So if you move one motor forward, positive speed, and the other one backwards, the robot's going to turn. Then for how long that the motors are running, you can set the motors to run for a number of rotations, or a number of degrees, or a number of seconds. You can steer the robot that way. The only problem is, as you saw with the distance, it's not terribly accurate. If you need it to be accurate, this isn't really gonna do it. We have a gyro sensor. It is a little bit temperamental. Sometimes you plug them in and they're reading all kinds of angles. This one is reading an angle of 0, which is great. If it's happening, if it's just, changing angles, like the angles are going up, or down, just unplug it and plug it back in. That will straighten it out. The big hint is use the gyro sensor. You can see the gyro sensor. Let me get closer so you can see it. This is the gyro sensor. So you can figure out how much it's turned, how much the robot has rotated. Let's make a block to rotate a certain number of degrees. First, I'm going to call it right. Make a block. Make a block that is going to rotate the robot to the right a number of degrees. Go to my movement, get my A and B to start moving. I'm going to start my motors A and B moving. I want them to start moving at, let's say, at -5 and 5%. One's moving backwards, one's moving forward, and that should get it to rotate. Okay, so if we did something like that and we told it to run, the robot would rotate in place. If we wanted it to rotate for a certain number of degrees, I'm going to be using the gyroscope, and right now it's at 175 degrees. We have to reset it before we can tell it to do its angly thing. I'm going to tell it to reset, then I'm going to have it wait for a second to make sure that everything's cool, under control. Tell it to wait for 1 second, just to be 100% sure. I'm going to have it reset it again. This part is probably unnecessary. My gyroscope is plugged into port number 1. Reset the angle, set the motors to moving. Instead of moving for 1 rotation, wait until the angle is greater than, let's say 180, greater than 180 degrees, 180. Then, as soon as it's greater than 180, let's tell the motor to stop. We will tell it to stop moving. Stop moving. Let's see how that goes. If it works, this will end up at 180 degrees. I didn't tell it to start moving. Tell the motors to start moving at -5% and 5%. This 2 should be a 1 because we're in port 1. All right, let's try that again. So it should reset this to 0. That begins. And then it waits a second, and then we start to rotate. Okay, when it gets to 180, it should stop. It stops, but there's a little bit of residual movement, so it rotated 2 extra degrees. Let's try it again, see if it does that again. And if it does, we'll just subtract 2 degrees. It's 181 this time. Let's try one more time. (182). Let's just subtract 2 degrees from our angle. 178. Got to 180 right there. Let's build a block to do this. Call the block right. My blocks, we'll make a block called right. We're going to add an input, which will be the degrees, and save. So we'll define this block by what we were just doing there. Instead of 178, this will be the degrees, but degrees, we need to subtract 2 degrees. We'll use our operators, and we're going to use our subtraction. We're going to do degrees, take away 2, and I'm going to replace my 178 with that. We stop moving. That should be it. The only other thing is I'm going to put a little sound in there just to say that we're turning right. Sound, we're going to communicate information right, and yeah, right here. So let's try that block. There's my right. And let's tell it to go right 90 degrees. We're going to ask it to rotate right 90 degrees. Let's put a 90 in there, and let's try that. And here it goes. We're at 60, 70, 89, 90. There you go.